took me up above the earth and they showed me the planet being destroyed. And I said, what have you done? Why have you done this? And he said, we didn't do this. He said, this has not happened yet. And he said, but this is your future. If you humans continue on the path that you're on now, this is your destiny. Well, why are you showing me this? I'm just a little girl. I said, you need to show this to like the president or people who can do something about it. And he knelt down in front of me and got right down and looked in my eyes and he said, Sherry, it starts with one. And so when people ask me, what does that mean on your t-shirt? It starts with one. I say, anybody can make a change in this world. You don't have to be somebody. You just have to speak up. You just have to not remain silent.
Thank you. One other question I had that I was going to ask later, but I think it really ties in now, is I wanted to ask you more about the other warnings and predictions that your guys or beings have told you about, and some that have come to pass or some that have not, and warnings that everyone should possibly consider in their own life.
Well, my guys don't really give warnings so much as they kind of did, like with that whole thing of it starts with one and this is your future. And it was our future when I volunteered to come in, and I volunteered in the timeline 1947 to come in, and I went into training and everything and came actually incarnated in 1950 onto the planet. It was after the atomic bomb had been detonated. The Earth was on a timeline at that time to be destroyed. So, the agenda for all of the millions of us who came in, and probably the people listening to this, most of them are probably volunteers or starseeds, light workers, almost for sure. The whole reason for us to come in was because the planet, Mother Earth, had asked for assistance. She didn't want to be destroyed, of course, but she had been holding back her ascension, waiting for her children to awaken. And there had been many, many attempts on this planet in the past to get the children of Earth to reach the level of frequency where they could go with her into the fifth dimension. And every time there was a failure. It just didn't happen. They didn't make it. And so the planet would be washed clean and humanity start all over again. There would be survivors, and each story, depending on which one you look at. But this time was the final time. She wasn't going to wait anymore. She couldn't wait anymore. She needed to move on. It was time. So it was make it or break it for humanity. And from where we stood looking at this planet and observing what was going on, we saw a dire situation, very dire. The humans on this planet had been recycled so many times through so many lives, where they had been suppressed and manipulated and controlled, that their souls had been beaten down. And many of them had become, well, if you know Dolores Cannon, she talks about backdrop people. Many of them had become backdrop people, where their souls had basically just given up, and their oversoul, their higher self, had pretty much abandoned them and said, I can't, I've been trying to wake you up, and you just get born into this planet, and then you fall right into the prison system, and you go to work, and you live your life and figure, when I die, I'll get my reward in heaven, and hallelujah. You buy into the whole thing all over again, and they don't awaken, because the control system on this planet was really tight, tough, terrible. And so we had our work cut out for us. That's why the planet was flooded with just millions of us that came in. And as a result of that, I used to say, I didn't come here for the humans. I came here for the humans are lost cause, but I came here for Mother Earth, which is kind of somewhat true. But as it turns out, we brought the frequency up, definitely, and the awareness level, and people are waking up. Now, are the so-called backdrop people, the native Earth humans, I call them, the ones who have been here for incarnation for centuries, if not thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. Those people are probably not, awakened enough to go into the fifth dimension, but it's still a win-win because they are being freed from this planet. They are not going to be recycled onto a planet that is going to keep their soul trapped and keep them under this horrible control system. They are going to go to a planet that resonates at their frequency, which is going to probably be a 3D planet or 4D, and they will have the opportunity to awaken, which they've been denied for so long. So that's a win for them. So if they don't make it this time, it's not a race. It doesn't matter. We have all of eternity. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So people sometimes get discouraged when they hear this, and I don't say it to be a downer about it. I'm celebrating it. I feel like we have a victory. The Earth is moving into 5D. Those of us who came as volunteers were awakened, and we're going to go back from whence we came, or some will stay and go with the new Earth and stay with it. The light children that have been born onto the planet and are continuing to come onto the planet will populate it, and it's going to be a beautiful fifth dimensional planet of freedom and light, and humanity survived. And that was a great concern. If we wanted to make sure that the human entity, the biological entity of the Earth human survived. We didn't want just the Earth to go forward without the humans. And that's why I participated in the hybrid program. And the participation I did with that was human to human hybridization with DNA enhancement. And so that's what my hybrid children are. And so we really accomplished a lot. But we have God on our side, and so it should be that way. But to defeat the dark, it didn't happen without a lot of sacrifice and a lot of work. So, okay.
Okay. I think that all of that ties in pretty well to what I want to talk about next, and that is your reference to the waves of volunteers or volunteer souls. And I don't know if you've said 3 waves of volunteers like Susie Hansen and Dolores Cannon have, and others haven't in the past, but first I just want to ask where you originally got the information of the waves of volunteer souls, and what else your guys have told you about that subject, and what we should know about that right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting subject to me, Troy, because I was writing my book totally blind about abductions. They came in and told me on my, I think it was my 60th birthday, my guys showed up and in my room after being gone almost 20 years. I mean, I had some stuff with them, but nothing overt. And they showed up all of a sudden one night. I woke up and he's standing there. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, I don't have any eggs for you to harvest. I was 60 years old. And he's like, "No, we're not here for that." And he said, we talked to you about the great earth changes. That's what they call them. We talked to you about the great earth changes. Well, we are in the thick of it now, he said, and time to get to work. That's what he said. And I said, "Okay, good." I said, "Do I get to do that thing called the light reading stuff?" They had taught me to be a light reader and told me that was going to be happening during the time of the shift, and that I would be helping to organize the people and encourage those who were close to being of the frequency to move onward and upward, encourage them to finish the race, more or less. I'd always say, you're almost there, just finish the race. You just have to deal with a few more of your demons and a few more things and free yourself of some fears, and you'll be good to go. So that's what I was talking about. And he said, "No, we already did that." And I said, "You did it without me." And he said, "No." He said, you participated, you just don't remember." And then he dropped the memory back into my head, and it was awesome stuff. Really, really amazing stuff, but it was overwhelming. So that was him coming in to tell me that things were changing on the planet, and it was time for us to move forward with all the plans that were in place. And let's see, your question was, God, I'm losing. I get started telling my story, and I'm so focused on remembering what happened.
Yeah, my question was about the waves of volunteer
Yeah,
souls and
yeah,
what you know about them now, and
yep.
I guess also how someone knows if they're a volunteer soul and of what type and what to do with that information.
Okay, prompt me if I don't answer all that.
Okay.
So, okay, so he tells me this, and that's when he told me that it was time for me to go to work, and that I had to write a book. And that sounded pretty cool to me, to write a book. So I said, okay, I'll write a book. But as time went by, I said, I don't want to write a book because it would be outing myself. I realized what it would do to my life. And I had my business, my family. And so I withdrew. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I went off to Arizona. And while I was there, I came awake one morning. I was dressed. I apparently had showered and done all my morning stuff, but I didn't remember it. As far as I knew, I was just waking up, but I was waking up sitting at the dining room table, and I was typing on my computer. And it was bizarre to have that. That's a weird thing to have happen, but I didn't scream or anything. I just was like, okay, what's going on here? And I stopped typing and I looked at the computer and I read it, and it was clearly the story, it was about my life. And I was like, I said out loud, I said, oh no, I'm not doing this. And he said, it is time. And I said, I'm not doing this. I told you I'm not doing this. And he said, it is time. And I was like, ah. And I was like, what's written here? And I was like, how much have I written anyway? And I went back and I was on page 3, and I started reading it from the first page and on through. And it did, because it was my life, and it was explaining to me things that I had suppressed, things I didn't know. I found it to be of interest. So I changed my mind and I said, okay, I'll write it. I will write it, because I was getting answers to all those weird things in my life. I could see I was going to get answers to what really had happened, and I wanted that. So I agreed to write it. And as I wrote the book, Troy, I found myself saying things. I mean, stuff came out that I didn't know consciously, but it came through the tunnel, through the connection that I had to my higher self, or to them, whatever you want to call it. And I referred to myself as a participant in a program. So when I'm finally getting around to answering your question, I referred to, and that's how I wrote the book. If you read the book, you'll see I don't think I use the word volunteer at all, unless it's later on, because I write that I was a participant in a program, because that's the way my guys had put it to me. They'd always said, you're a participant in a program, you're in this program. And they refer to, your family, you've been in this program for a long time, and so that's the way I put it. I think I was done with the book, done writing it, or I was close to done with writing it, when a friend emailed me a video of Dolores Cannon. I had never heard of her before. I didn't know anything about anybody. As far as I knew, there were no other books out there about people talking about alien abductions. I didn't know anything about it. That's how I had been so blocked and kept blind, that when Whitley Strieber's book came out about communion, I don't even know when that came out, but when that came out, I just steered away from it. I couldn't look at it, and I couldn't even acknowledge it, much less think about reading it or anything. So I don't know. That came out maybe after I had written my book. I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth. So I watched the video about Dolores Cannon, and I just broke down and cried like a baby when I heard her talk about the volunteers, because I realized I wasn't alone. I mean, I could get emotional right now. I realized it wasn't just me being crazy, because I was sitting here writing this book, which I had no intention of allowing it to be published, but I was writing it for my own selfish purposes, so I could get understanding of the double life I had, because I knew I had an awareness through my whole life. When I was in my teens and my 20s, I knew I was living a different life, but I thought everybody did. I thought everybody had a life running on a different track parallel to the life they have on this earth. I just thought it was just the way life was. It wasn't, honest to God, until not that long ago that I realized that's not true. I mean, it took Jim telling me. He's like, you're so strange. I mean, we've been together 10 years, and he had the guts to point out to me, and the strength to, and the fearlessness to say, you're not normal, Sherry. And I was like, well, I kind of am. I mean, I think I'm a human. I'm in a human body. He's like, no, you're not even, don't even call yourself a human, he will say. So it was a relief to me. I might have gone into the book. I don't know if I did or not. If I went in and changed and started calling myself a volunteer, maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I have no idea. I started to reread my book when I was in Tucson this last winter because I need to do that because it's been so long and I need to freshen up on some of the details of how, you know, what is in there and what's not, because I forget things like this. But so I went for a walk after getting that video out in the desert. And my guys were always with me at that time because they were dictating the book and they were just close always. And I walked through the desert and I was thinking about my life and thinking about the book and the information I had just gotten. And I felt them near. And so I started talking to them and we can have conversations. And I used to be able to do that. I don't do it as much now. They're busy with other things. But I said, so is that true? Do I fall in that category? Am I like a volunteer? So I agreed to do this before I came here, which had been my understanding anyway. It was basically the same thing I had been told, a participant in a program, but it was like Dolores filled it in so much more. She fleshed it out for me and made it real and made it, the word mission, you know, I started to think of myself as having a mission, and it explained why my life seemed to have no free will in it. I had no free will. If I tried to exert free will over my life and make a decision to do this over here, I would be nudged back and told, no, 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 no. And I'd be like, but I want to go down this path. And they're, no, no. And if I tried to go down that path, you got cut off. I had no free will, very little. And so I was asking about all that. And Da was there, and they basically just right out in the middle of the desert, this curtain appeared in front of me, and he just pulled it back, and he showed me things which I can't even remember. I just remember I fell to my knees in the sand, and I watched it, and it was me before I came here, and my life, and planning my life, and agreeing to be of service to the planet at this time, along with so many others, and being part of this grand, huge, magnificent plan, you know, and mission, and each of us having our role to play, and hoping that everyone woke up and remembered what they were here for. That was the fear. That was my fear. And I saw myself say to Da before I came here, make sure I don't fall so deep asleep that I don't awaken. Make sure you stay in my life. Make sure you keep me 1 foot in my real world. And they did that, which drove me crazy, but I'm so glad they did, because I know people who came here on a mission who fell asleep and they never woke up, and now they're stuck. They're, you know, I don't know. I've asked over and over again, will they be brought back? I mean, they did come as a volunteer. Certainly they must not be penalized for that they fell into the ego and they fell into the game of the matrix. But I'm not sure. They may have to work their way back up out of it. You know, we've most of us who are volunteers, you know, I came from 6th density level 2, and a lot of the volunteers came from 5th and 6th density. And we've already gone through our ascension, obviously, at least on this timeline that we're looking at. We're all multidimensional beings, so everybody's existing on all these different levels. I mean, from that perspective, none of this even is worth talking about, because it's all just a game. But in the game that we're playing here, you know, it would be a shame to have them fall back. But I do not refer to them as 3 waves of volunteers. I don't see it as waves, but I can understand why they were categorized that way, and it does make sense. But there are volunteers that came in constantly. You know, I just think the earth was filtered with them constantly. But it is interesting. I think the categorizing of them helps to define the mission. Those of us who came in first, we did have it hardest. Absolutely. We had it the toughest. And there were many who couldn't handle it. I tell you, if I wouldn't have had my guys there with me all the time, and if I wouldn't have had probably the parents I had who brought me up in such a safe environment and so close to nature, which nourished me and nurtured me. Otherwise, I don't know if I could have made it either. And then the second wave coming in, and the third, and the indigo children. I mean, they all serve they all have a little bit of a different mission, and I think that the mission gets a little bit easier as you get, as you move down the line, because of those of us who came before and forged the path, So let's see, was there more to your question?
No, that's really all for now. You answered that pretty well. I have one more topic I'd want to talk about. I think I'll save that for later. We're already at least 40 minutes or more into this discussion, so I'd like to open the floor to everyone else. So now would be a good time to start raising your hands. Sherry can take them one by one, and you can unmute yourself as she calls on you, and then just have a discussion with a few questions maybe, and we'll see where it goes from here. Brian, it looks like you're the first volunteer, let's say, or hand raise.
Oh, thank you. And thank you, Troy, for putting this together. My first time meeting Sherry. It's a real honor. Sherry, I appreciated what you said about the truther movement. I've been quite involved in the last 10 years in that. And also what you said about rebirth. I've been a Theravada Buddhist teacher since 1996, and Karma rebirth is our whole worldview in Buddhism. I wanted to ask you about the philosophy of our meetup group, preparing for alien contact, is that we should facilitate and raise awareness about the alien agenda to advance humanity. That's like our whole purpose. So what are your comments on that? And if you think that's a good idea, like how should we go about doing that?
Well, I think you're on the right path, raising your frequency. I think I heard you say raising awareness of the subject matter. And so the frequency is everything. It's just everything. Those of us who have contact with our cosmic family, it comes down to your frequency, and if you're ready for that kind of contact, because the higher your frequency and the more aware you are and evolved, quite honestly, you can't be in fear. And many of us, I mean, I was certainly, it's hard not to be in fear, even to this day. If an ET shows up here, it depends on what they look like, but when they look different than what we look like, it's a lot harder. And the grays especially trigger me. And my guys are actually technically not grays. When I asked Da if he was, he told me, that would not best describe the truth of who I am. And I said, well, who are you? And he said, I am a voyager of the universe, going where needed in service to the creator. We just wear these bodies when we come into your density because we have to have a form, and they are very, very practical. I think, not that, whatever, very, I don't know. He has a very practical word for it. But so I think raising awareness, raise your frequency. There is somewhat of an agenda because we do have the higher dimensional ETs guiding us, watching us. I mean, Earth would not have made it without that assistance. It just wouldn't have. And that's not to put down the humans. It's because of the control system. We were under the humans, and I include myself in it for the time that I'm here. I fell into the matrix and into the whole idea that you had to work hard in your life, and that the whole system for the most part. I didn't buy into religion. That I never was able to buy into that whole thing with sin and being rewarded in heaven and all that stuff. That didn't sit with me. But I did buy into the idea of working hard and being a good little patriot and being a good little citizen and following the orders, trusting your government. I mean, obviously, when Vicki said, let's go to that news briefing and find out what they have to say, because they say if you've seen a ship and been abducted, that could be happening to you. And my response was, this is America. They would never allow that to happen. I mean, that's how naive I was back then. So I had to go through my own awakening too. But there's assistance absolutely coming from the higher realms, and we well deserve it. We've been kind of forgotten about, drifting through space here on this planet, and they allowed the dark ones to gain too much of an upper hand, I think. And we lost all chance of a fair fight. So I think that it was good the Creator came in and said, my children have been left alone too long. They need to awaken now, and they need help. And so they've leveled the playing field a little bit. It's very touchy with free will, very touchy with free will, because that was the whole game that was set in place on this planet. And so you can't change the rules partway through just to suit yourself. So we've had to be very careful about the impeding the free will and stepping on toes that way. But I think as long as you are open and your heart centered, your frequency is high, and you just are in a state of allowance, in no fear. Even if fear comes in, it's unavoidable, but you can still have the intention of overcoming that, and they will help you. They understand the fear. You know, I told that to Da once. I was doing an interview with somebody, and I told him how I still react. My body has a visceral reaction of fear. But still, when I see Da like that, when he showed up when I was 60, you know, and he was there, I was like, ah! You know, it took me a while. Then I had to be put like in an altered state a little bit before I could talk to him. And I told him, you know, you scare me. And this guy was interviewing me, and he said, well, why don't they wear a human body instead when they come to visit you? So it's more, you know, like the Pleiadians and stuff. And I said, that's a good idea. I'm going to ask him that. So I asked him, and he said, oh, it's too complicated. You know, the gray body, or what do they call it? The gray, or the whatever they call it. He calls it something different. He said that body is it's very highly functional and easy, whereas the human body is a little more complicated. He said, and prone, can get hurt more easily. He said, so we wear these whatever, the gray body. And he said, why do you ask? And I said, well, because you scare me every time you come in. And he said, I scare you? And I said, yeah, you do. And he goes, well, you humans, you scare us. And I said, excuse me? And he said, well, you scare us. He said, when you do that thing that you call smiling and you bar your teeth like that, it looks like you're going to eat us. He said, so we get scared of you too. So, get used to it, kind of a thing. He was kind of indignant, but he was just teasing. He was teasing me, But anyway, I think you're on the right path. Contact's going to happen. It's got to, but it won't be before, we're all ready for it. But in the meantime, you can call them in. You can invite them in. And I think, usually they start to visit you in your dreams, in your dream state, and in your altered state. And you won't even remember the first few times you have contact, probably, but it's a weird thing to experience contact, but it's cool. I hope you get it. I hope you achieve it. So.
Well, if I could follow up on that, I appreciate what you said about frequency. My question is more about raising awareness and facilitating, like the idea that there's an alien agenda for human advancement. So the purpose of meetup group, like I spend all week, I can spend like 50, 60 hours a week on this. I feel I'm an ordinary human being. I'm not particularly experiencer. That really, I think what we should do, or what do you think of the idea that we should raise awareness, like making videos like this? And there's so many contactees, like you said, people have shut down, turned off, or they're burned by the world. That's why facilitation is good, even talking to one person. But doesn't it seem like our job is to raise awareness? Well, because the president of the United States isn't going to come out and give us full disclosure. So it seems to be it's necessary for it to be done gradually through the populace, through experiencers, people like yourself and us, and having meetup groups and videos and YouTube. So that's kind of the purpose of our meetup, is to have guests like you and get the message out. I feel this is the best thing we can do. If you can comment on that. I'm just as an ordinary person. I'm not particularly much of an experiencer.
I totally agree, Brian. I mean, I think you're on the right path for sure. And I've gotten thousands of emails, of course, since my book came out, and my book has been a trigger for those. I always say it lands in the hands of those who are ready to read it and ready to face their lives. There's the secret in their lives, which is that they have contact, because almost everyone who reads that book is drawn to it because they are meant to, at this time, be triggered to remember their own contact. And that's important right now. And so, yeah, it is about talking about it. And so the emails when I get from people and they say, oh, you're so brave for talking about this. I wish I could do it, but I can't. My family won't listen to me. My husband thinks I'm crazy. I keep this a secret. I this and that and all this stuff. I say, first of all, I'm not brave. A case could be made that I'm stupid, but I'm not brave. I didn't really have any choice. I am a volunteer and I have no choice in it. I have to fulfill my mission. And my guys have reminded me of that many times, which is where the title of the book came from. When I said, no, I'm not having the book published, Doc came storming in and he's like, Sherry, you took a vow. Have you forgotten the promise you made? And, they're not above the using guilt. So I write back to these people and I say, talk about it. Talk about your experience. Talk about to anybody who will listen. If they don't want to hear it, talk about it anyway. Just the more people who talk about it, the more commonplace it will become, because we have been brainwashed. The dark ones on this planet have used the media. You can't watch some of the sitcoms from days gone by or movies. They always manage to get in there about alien abduction and ha tee, she's crazy or it's been subtle, but it's continually that if you proclaim yourself to be in contact with aliens, you're just stamped crazy. And that's it. There's no questions about it. There's no judge or jury. There's no discussion, which is just the opposite of what it should be. Somebody says they have contact with a higher dimensional being. Everybody should be going, what did you learn? You must have learned something. They're more intelligent. They have more, tell us what you, instead, of course, we've been programmed to laugh at them and turn away and shun them. And people don't see that. that's so obviously clear how that is manipulation and control, but they don't see it. But we can turn the tide on that by everybody on the planet has had contact on some level. Everybody has had contact on some level. You don't get through this life without having contact or a visit from your cosmic family. They come in to check on you, on what level that happens or what. But do you remember it? Probably not. Most do not. But those of you who do or have a sense of it, it doesn't matter. Talk about it. Just let's make this an everyday thing, and let's show some curiosity and to think that we're the only ones. I know people who are educated. I would say they're educated. I won't say they're intelligent. They're educated, highly educated, and they think we're alone in the universe. They honestly believe that the only life is here on planet Earth, which, wow, what a fine job they did in shutting this down. But it's up to us. You're doing the right thing. It's a grassroots thing. And I say we don't need disclosure. We've already got it. We know they're there. Those of us who are intelligent and awake, we know. We don't need our president or our government to put the stamp of approval on it. What does that mean? That means nothing. It means less than nothing. It probably means more to not have their approval and their silliness on this whole agenda. So I say we just keep talking about it and moving forward. It's why I do these talks. As I was preparing for this, I didn't sleep well last night. I had some stuff going on, and I was telling Jim, I was like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't know if I can get through this, but hopefully my guys will come in and give me the energy. And I'm like, why do I still do these things even though I'm so sick? But this is why. This is why somebody has to keep forging forward. And if we don't, and I'm talking to everybody who's watching right now, if we don't, who's going to? The people who are not watching this, who don't even know about this, or who look at it and go, those people are crazy. They're not going to do it. So it's up to us to spread the word. Okay? Thanks. And good luck to you, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Sherry.